Welcome to the second part of my video on university shortlisting. If you haven't watched my first part, please go and do that. In the first part, I had discussed about profile evaluation, where I had discussed about the parameters that you should consider when evaluating your own profile. In this video, I'll be talking about university and profile matching, where I'll be discussing how do you map your profile and identify universities where you can apply to. Now, if you remember in my earlier video, that is in the first part of the video, I had shared two tables where I had given the university rank and the average GPA and the average GRE scores. Here I have just combined those two tables. And if you see, these are the university ranks and the GRE scores and the GPA requirements of those universities. Again, like I had mentioned in the earlier part, this is just a benchmark and not an absolute rule. But based on this, you can at least get a sense of the kind of rank of universities that you can get into. Having said that, the next part would be to take a deeper dive into the university admission statistics. Say, now that you know that your profile stands for a good fit for a university ranked in the say 25 to 50, now which of these universities should you apply to? Maybe you can target, say, some universities which are slightly higher on the rank, some which are moderate, which are a good fit for your profile, and a few universities which are safe. Now, if you see on the screen, the first tab that I have put on top is university admission statistics. This is the most important thing in the whole application process, is finding out the admission statistics of universities, and this is specific to your program. That is the program that you are going to apply for. Say, for example, you are applying to computer science program and ideally you want to apply to a top 20 university. So, and then you say, okay, I want to apply to say University of Southern California. I want to apply to Purdue. I want to apply to UIUC, Georgia Tech, UCLA. Now, what has been the admission statistics of these universities for their MS in computer science program? It is honestly not very easy to get this data. But if you do a little research, if you look at, there are some websites where, students post their own past experience based on that. Another way to get this information is to maybe talk to your seniors who have already applied. They would be a good source of information for you. Try to connect with students on LinkedIn or maybe some other platforms of students who are already studying at these universities. They can be a good source of information. So once you know which bucket you fall into, I mean, say you fall into a university bucket of say 25 to 50, those are your target universities. You then try to go deeper into the universities that you would like to apply to and try to identify universities which actually match your profile. So now, one way to, of course, go about the whole university admission statistics or identifying is to maybe talk to your counselor. That is in case you are working with one. But even if you are working with a counselor, I always recommend and I tell all my students that it is always good to do your own homework. So that way you can have more intelligent discussions with your counselor. So don't just completely rely on your counselors. You should also, as a student, be aware of where do you stand in terms of your profile, what kind of universities that can you get into. So having said that, the next step would be to identify a set of universities, some on the ambitious side. And I'm not saying that you should be applying to 10 universities. As you see on the screen, I have put in the number 10, 10 and 5. So that doesn't mean that you have to apply to 25 universities, but you narrow down your list starting with a list of 25 universities. And then you go into the finer details. Like once you have identified which ones, which 25 would you like to apply. Again, not 25 all in one category, but some of them would be on the ambitious side, some on the moderate, some on the safer side. You then go deeper into by considering factors such as what is the curriculum offered by these programs. The main important thing is the curriculum. Obviously, if you want to study a particular subject, whether it is offered by the program, maybe all universities that you have identified don't offer. So then just drop the university. The next thing is the location. And I say location because maybe I'll do a separate video on location itself. Location to certain extent affects your job search. I mean, the jobs that you get or the kind of companies that you would apply to, the number of opportunities that you might get can be affected by the location that you are in. So the location again becomes an important factor. You should definitely talk to some current students at these universities to get a sense of what kind of career opportunities do students graduating from these universities get. So that will also be an important factor. And the most important factor is definitely your cost. Like you should, as a student, and maybe as a if you are working with your parents, in terms of you are expecting your parents to pay for your education, or you are planning for an education loan, whatever be the case, you should have a fair understanding of the budgets that you have. Because sometimes what happens is students apply to program without having a sense of what it's going to cost them to study at those universities. Say for example, if you maybe did all the your profile evaluation, you did your university mapping, and you decide that I would like to apply to Columbia. But Columbia as such is, although a great school, is a slightly expensive school. So the thing that you have to ask yourself is, can I afford to go to Columbia? And if your answer is no, my recommendation is don't apply. The only reason I say that is because applications are not free. You're going to actually pay an application fee. You might also pay money to send your GRE and TOEFL scores to the universities. So after doing all that, if you and even if you get an admit, if you really can't afford that university, don't apply there. So plan to apply to universities that actually fall within your budget, whatever be your budget. If you can afford and you think you're willing to stretch, great. But if not, then don't just waste application by applying to universities that you eventually would definitely not go to. Now, other factors that you can consider are maybe, say, the weather conditions at a particular place, in case those are important to you. Say, maybe having family in a particular location and you want to be close to them, then maybe you can choose universities based on these. Although I do not really give a lot of importance to these factors, and I would not recommend making these as your primary factors. The other factors like the curriculum, the cost of the university, and all are more important, and of course your possibilities of getting in. So based on all these factors, the objective is to narrow down your universities to say a list of 10 to 12 universities at the max. Again, you wouldn't apply to all these 10, 12, but then maybe you should probably bring it down to a list of 10 universities where 3 to 4 universities are more on the ambitious side than that, which you would call your dream schools. There are 3 to 4 on the moderate side, and maybe 1 or 2 on the safer side. If you want to apply to more universities, I would generally recommend applying to more ambitious schools, because at the end of the day, what matters is getting into a good school. When you finish your application process and when your results are out, say you have applied to 8 schools and you've got all 8 admits, that really is not going to help, because you can't study at all 8 schools. You have to study at one school. So it is better that you have one good admit rather than 8 safe admits. So try to apply to more ambitious ones. Keep 1 or 2 universities as safe, where you definitely know that you have a very high possibility of getting in, but don't apply to too many safe universities. So in conclusion, the whole university mapping is going to be a combination of a lot of factors. Of course, the most important factor is going to be your profile, and understanding what is the profile of past students who have got into. And beyond that, you will be considering your cost, the location, the overall rankings, what are the career opportunities that students get after these programs. That is again, which would again depend to a certain extent on the location of the university. So once you do all this, your goal is to identify around 6 to 8 good universities. Most students apply to 8 schools, maybe 10 to in some cases, but the idea is to apply to 8 to 10 schools. Now, having said that, this is not going to be a one-day process, or it's not going to be just you just sit down and you work on your university shortlist, and maybe within 2 to 3 hours you will have your universities mapped out. This is going to be an ongoing process as part of your application. But what I generally recommend is, don't delay your application just because you haven't identified all the universities that you would be applying to. One of the classic mistakes that students make is that they say, okay, I haven't identified the universities, so I wouldn't start working on my applications. Whereas I would recommend that, if you have kind of even identified one university, or at least you know that you are definitely going to apply, start working on the applications. Like, that you will need an SOP, you will need recommendation letters, you will need transcripts from college. So start getting all these things, start working on those aspects as well. You don't have to actually finalize all the 8 to 10 universities that you would eventually apply to. Even if you know that, okay, these are the 5 universities that I will definitely applying to, start working on their applications. In the next concluding video on this topic, I'll discuss some additional factors that you might want to consider before you finalize on the universities. I hope you find my videos useful and thank you for watching.